Now, there is going to be a bill that's expected to be voted on the day after tomorrow. And I know that you've been critical and very outspoken about the fact that we ought to be talking about things like recurring payments to people, not just individual sort of stimulus style checks. You've talked about some of the kinds of reforms that you want to see as well. And I am quite sure that bill does not meet what you think it ought to meet in terms of the immediate needs of the American public right now and your constituents. But do you plan on voting for it? Do you have? Do you know if it's going to be better than nothing at this point in terms of whether it's going to earn your vote?
Yes. Well, we're just, the final text was not ready for the majority of this week. We're hearing that it's, it just rolled out from the Senate and we're starting to pour over it. But, I think what we really need to realize is that this small bill, while something may be better than nothing, it is happening in the context of Congress having gone on recess for a month. We are going to pass a small potatoes bill, and then we are talking about recessing again until May 4th. And if we are going to bring every member or call back almost every member who can back to D.C. to pass a small incremental bill, and with the knowledge that we are not coming back until next month again, that's 2 rent checks. And the last time we left, again, we lost over 9/11's worth of people due to this lack of action. And so we really need to acknowledge that this small bill, whilst again, something is better than nothing. And frankly, Democrats fought very, very hard to get basic things like testing. Republicans didn't want to fund hospitals. They didn't want to fund mass testing, which is what is actually going to allow us to reopen the economy. So I appreciate the strides that they made in that. But ultimately, in voting on the text of this bill, knowing that we are abdicating our responsibility. We haven't legislated for a month, and thousands of people are dying. Thousands of people are dying every day. And we're talking about coming back. And every time we pass one of these bills, we're hearing that the real solution is coming in the next bill, and then the next bill, and the next bill. And at some point, we have to raise our hands and say, when is the solution coming? Because 2 months of rent are going to pass by before we're actually even entertaining a real bill. And we're talking about we're talking about the scope of mass displacement in the United States of America. We are also talking about major cities, New York City, Los Angeles, Chicago, laying off almost every city worker or large thousands of city workers and essentially only keeping certain personnel. We're talking about laying off first responders and police officers because we aren't getting state and municipal funding. So I appreciate when in Congress we say we're going to get to it, but we need to get to it in time. And that is ultimately the issue that we have. And so I'm reading the text, but we cannot just throw our hands and say that this is someone else's problem or that we're going to get to it eventually. Because if we pass a relief bill next year, we're going to be paying for morgues. And if we pass a relief bill now, we will be paying for prevention. And that's the difference.